Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 18 of X-Men Red, written by Al Ewing, but before we get started with the story, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel if you find anything interesting within the comics covered here, for with your help, this channel can grow and improve. So with that said, this issue opens with Storm's forces holding their position and waiting as the ground begins to shake as Genesis's force appears over the horizon. Her vast armies come in full force as the rebellion prepares for the end, because either way they look at it, this war will end today. And as for the Morrowlands, the same sentiments rang true as John Ironfire single-handedly took out all 99 of his former comrades as the White Sword watched on, readying himself for their final showdown. But see, this war was fought not only by the soldiers, but also by the very land itself, because, on this page, we get to see the living embodiment of the two islands trading thunderous blows in an attempt to end the conflict. Now, the new island of Kadrak fought with equal ferocity, because it would not simply lie down and die. For deep within Kadrak's secret heart was none other than Revelation and his new team. So with their power flowing through the living island's heart, Sunspot and the others suggest that they should help Storm, but that is when Apocalypse speaks up and doubles down on their plan and why they are needed within the island. Because Apocalypse states, Storm gave them the spark, so it is up to them to sustain it. Because these two rulers are fighting for more than just their own life. For they're actually fighting for the meaning of the word itself. So with that out there, Storm approaches Genesis, and before she can launch her attack, Genesis takes the Purity Blade and her spear and clashes it into the ground, summoning vines from the earth to strike the rebel leader. So with the vines threatening to suffocate Storm, Storm with little hesitation used her power to immediately freeze the vines into ice, and with little effort, she shattered it into tiny pieces. So with anger in her eyes, Storm geared up for a counterattack. But right as she threw a lightning bolt in Genesis's direction, the Staff of Annihilation whispered the word miss. Now Storm was directing her rage consciously at the spear, trying her best to keep it at the forefront of her mind, but to hear the whisper of the golden mask was to obey. Thus, Storm had no choice but to miss the staff. And instead the surge of energy made contact with the Purity Blade, which sent a surge of agony to the one who was holding it. And in the moment before she could control the pain, Genesis finally let the sword's purity escape her hand and return to its master in the Morrowlands. So as John Ironfire removed his blade from his last comrade, he turned to face his oldest friend Blue, and in this moment, he tells his friend if he needs to beg to get him to listen, then that is exactly what he would do, because he really wanted Blue to understand that Genesis only cares for her own empty glory. Which, due to the Annihilation staff influence, Blue wasn't willing to see it from his old friend's point of view. So with an outstretched hand, Blue was able to manifest the Purity Sword, so with his weapon at the ready, he tells John that Genesis is right and the battle has just begun. So with the two ready for their showdown, we jump over to a full-fleshed battle between the remaining forces. So with Genesis' forces ready to do their worst, Oro Sereda takes the lead and tells its comrades that there is no need to make a mess this close, for she has a clear sight of their enemies. And due to her clear sight, she can challenge them all by herself. For all she needed to do is just look at them and they will cease to exist. And the first target Oro Sereda has in mind is DaCosta. So with the challenge out there, DaCosta steps up with Korra at his side, amplifying his power. In fact, Korra was able to push his power to his furthest limits, turning his appearance so bright that it was as if Oro Sereda was staring directly into the sun itself. And with this amazing display of power, the Omega-level mutant, Oro Sereda, found itself completely blinded and powerless to do any damage. So with the all-powerful Eye out of commission, we jump back over to Blue and John Ironfire trading blows back and forth. Now we learned that the Purity Sword has another function than just cutting off heads, for it can also cut through lies. So as the fight approached its climax, John ended up catching the Purity Blade, right before driving his knee directly into Blue's gut. And see, due to John's abilities, that knee was more than just a blunt attack, for a spike found itself home. So with the leader of the 100 hurt, John managed to get hold of the Purity Blade and delivered the final blow, in an attempt to free his oldest friend from the lie of annihilation. So even though Blue laid in two pieces, John was fully aware that even this attack wouldn't be enough to seal his fate, for the only way to finish him off is by taking out his heart. So if John put the blade in his heart and held it there until it stopped beating, then and only then can victory be had. So with John contemplating his decision, we jump back over to the battlefield, where Oro is left blind after DaCosta's attack. And despite her disadvantage, she still managed to make his way through the battlefield, crying about how she is the law and how the law will endure. Until she stumbles upon the Fisher King saying, there are stronger forces than the law at play, because once the Fisher King had no weapon and that defined him, but now history is his weapon and no one survives it in the end. So with our hero outstretching his arm, he started to transfer Xylo directly into Oro as weaponless Zen watched on in horror. So following that, we jump back over to Storm and Genesis going at it, and Storm is pointing out how Genesis' war is tearing the planet apart. But see, none of this is actually phasing Genesis, cause at this point in the story, Genesis is all consumed by the Annihilation Staff, and the only thing she cares about is her own victory. So with a burst of energy, the consumed Genesis manages to shoot Storm out of the air and onto the ground. So with our hero hurt, Genesis started to say, everything that lives has to fight to survive. Each breath is a battle, your body makes slaves of billions of microfungi. Now, at Genesis' command, they will turn against you. When the weak do not serve, the strong body dies. Now on the next page, while Storm is crawling towards Genesis, Storm started to hear the Annihilation Staff calling her name to serve. And then the mask goes on to say, Storm is dying and her body is turning against her, and one by one in time her organs will fail. For Death, who Storm has danced with so many times, readies to take her in his arms. But see, at that moment, the staff offers a way out, a reprieve. But Storm, the leader of the rebellion, said nothing. So the mask continued to speak on about how Genesis was its way into this world. For her worldview was a beacon calling the annihilation from a myth. But Genesis has outgrown her use. It took far too long the first time to cajole her from her endless prison to further conquests. Given the choice, she will maintain a siege, maintain her power, and maintain a status quo that serves her. And as for the spear, it would grow, rich and hungry, to satisfy that desire. But still, Storm said nothing. So the staff goes on to say that Storm's needs are more noble and she is not motivated as much by personal glory. Because in its words, it does not concern itself with motivations, but rather only with results. And when Storm turned down Uranos, Storm showed what results she was willing to accept. Then the staff goes on to say, with it in her hand, she will be right in all she says and all she does. Arrakko will embrace Storm's wisdom, and Earth will devote itself to Storm's cause. The future of humans and mutant kind will be Storm's to shape, and equality will be hers to enforce. And is such treatment not what Storm deserves? Is that not the least that is due to the goddess that she is? But once again, Storm said nothing. So this time a note of irritation entered the whisper's soft cadences, saying, Storm, I'm talking about your life and death. Have you heard a word I've said? And at that moment, Storm states that she had heard the words the staff said, as well as the words it had not said. So in curiosity, the staff responds by saying, and what is that? And with determination in her voice, Storm uttered the word miss, and just like that, Storm's attack hit clear as day as Genesis let out a scream. Now that scream was not of pain, but rather from the empty space left in her heart from the whispers being destroyed. Now her ancient foe and her oldest friend at the end of the day was made only of wood and fragile gold. So the strike was more than enough to claim the win. So with the Annihilation Staff removed and Genesis defeated, the debate had been decided. So let the whole world know that the war is over. Now, despite Genesis's defeat, some still wanted to fight on behalf of Genesis. But that was quickly shut down as Zalora, who on a side note is the mixture of Xylo and Oro, came in and eradicated those who failed to fall in line. For Zalora states that Storm has won and the Annihilation Staff is gone. And as for the challenge itself, which was witnessed by Lactuca and through her eyes, Zalora was also able to witness it too. Because from the start, this war was fought on false laws and false history. So because of that, Zalora declares that the war is over. So as both sides started to collect their dead, we jumped over to Sizia, weaponless Zen, Korra, and DaCosta overlooking the Fisher King's body. Because from the moment he merged with Xylo, the Fisher King knew that this was always a possibility. He always knew that he may sacrifice himself for the betterment of his people. Because in the prison he learned the toll it takes when someone steals your death for themselves and he didn't want to pay it twice. So with that sad ending for the Fisher King, we jump over to John Ironfire and his oldest friend, Blue. And with the death of Annihilation, the leader of the 100 was able to think clearly again. But despite their happy reunion, Blue couldn't help but to ask why John didn't do the deed and end his life. in which John stayed completely honest and said that he said his goodbyes and was ready to do the deed, but his friend was already lost. So in the end he turned his trust to Storm. Now this is a revelation as it was revealed to Apocalypse. Because it was not enough only to be strong, and it's not enough to just survive. Because in order to truly live, one must actually thrive. So as Krakoa and Arrakko embrace each other, the two islands eventually became one once again, so the old and the new was in harmony and ready to create something newer yet, and in this union of opposites, the true spirit of Okara is reborn. For the road was not gentle, nor was it easily traveled on, so with eyes wet from oceans of blood and the pain of the people of this land, they were able to see their destiny at last. And in that revelation, the Iraqi have finally become what they were intended to be. So as Apocalypse overlooks the ocean, he couldn't help but to be proud of what they have accomplished. And through this victory, he makes a promise to himself saying someday when the stars have aligned, he will join Genesis's exile and leave the Mended Lands behind him. But as of right now, things are still changing. For Iska still holds her mountains, the Spiral Vial still has its secrets, Sabunir has retreated to the oceans and became a hermit in the depths, and even Orc claims a space for his demon kin to thrive. So in the end each territory had decided for themselves what peace means. And because of that, the coming Blood Dawn will help release tension. But unfortunately, this victory will be short-lived, because they will need this time to rest and heal before Arrakko takes the fight to Orcus. But see, the funny thing about taking the fight to Orcus is in a way, the Great Ring already threw the first punch when they exiled Genesis. Because a place they chose to send her was none other than the moon of Phobos, a moon that once served as an outpost for Orcus. Now on a side note, Storm voted against this location for her exile because she believed it was a little too close to home for her liking. But nonetheless, this was where they chose to send her. So on the last page of this issue, we see the now exiled Genesis sitting upon a throne built of Orcus soldiers with her two remaining horsemen at her side, and strangely enough behind her in a capsule is none other than Kurt himself. Which to me was a surprise to see him there considering how Uncanny Spider-Man ended. So with that said, this issue of X-Men Red comes to an end. Now I have to say, I will miss this comic line, especially because the way this run ends leaves the door open for a lot more stories that could revolve around the Iraqi mutants. Now I'm fully aware that Storm will most likely play a role in the endgame of the Fall of X story. But anyway, down in the comment section below let me your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.